It goes right up top on this top hole here, and basically that's a guide. There is a hole that sits right here on the top of the body. You can see it. It's got a little scratch on it, but that's a guide so you don't put this thing in sideways, because these 3 holes on the side of this vertical reg have to line up with these 3 holes that are right there on the bottom of the body, and that pin is a guide. So what I ended up doing is just went and grabbed a pin out of one of my parts slash, if I ever get enough parts, project shockers. I just grabbed it out of this vertical adapter right here and put that aside. Alright, so everything appears to be clean. We got the Noid that we took off, which is the upper board on here was damaged, which is why we're going to be swapping it out for that other one we took out of that nerve. But while it's out, I might as well clean it off anyway. There's a lot of extra gunk and nasty stuff on here. And like I said before, when I get some time and the rest of my tools and everything back, I will do some solder work, and I'll swap out the board on this, so I'll be able to use the Noid, because the Noid is still good, just not the board. So, you know, trying to buy a Noid. I think Punisher PB has some Noids left, but those are running about $100 if you get them in a private sale anywhere on the forums, Tech PB, PB Nation, something like that. You're probably going to be paying about 60 bucks. So let's start throwing this thing back together. Alright guys, well we finally got the Noid and everything in there. Everything's working good. And I'm just putting this back in. I'm putting in one of these little trigger pins here to hold the board in place, and I'll show you guys here. We got the got this pin right here, and there's 2, and I only have 1, but 1 will be good enough just to hold it in place. And these go through the frame, in through the micro switch. The micro switch has 2 holes, and that's what holds it in place. So when you actually pull the trigger, you're gonna actually click the micro switch, and you're not just gonna push the board back. So we're just squeezing this pin in here down the best we can. Look the other side, making sure that lines up okay. Just gotta bring this in a little bit, and there it is. All right, so we get that pin in. See, and that's good enough for it's not gonna go anywhere. Nice light micro switch. All right. So at this point, you can go ahead and put a battery in here. That's dead. Yep, that's good. And once again, show you guys. Get this wire out of the way. So while I'm doing this, and as I noticed, just a quick thing for you guys. If you do ever take your frames off your shockers, your nerves, or something like that, you'll notice that harness wire that's connecting both the boards, because there's a lot of it. A lot of times it'll get stuck up in between this clamp, or it'll get stuck between the 2 boards or something like that. You're going to want to pull that out and make sure the excess is floating down into the frame and not messing up any of the inner workings of the boards. Alright guys, we're back here. And this is my first time actually taking this thing apart and servicing it since I've got it. And I've noticed a couple things that might have given you a problem, whether it be you Game Freak that I got this off of. And I know you said you didn't take it apart or anything like that, so it must have been the previous owner. I told you about the vertical reg. If somebody had ever taken that off, that would have been a problem. And I noticed that this power switch that's sitting in here, we'll go ahead and zoom in there. I'll get some light on it. This power switch that's sitting right here, see how that moves back and forth? That's what's going to actually click on the button on the upper board to actually turn it off and on. And the power switch is actually upside down, so the little prong that pokes up is not touching anything, which is why I'm pushing it down, and there's nothing happening. So very quickly I'm going to have to take this frame back off and just flip this thing over. Alright, if you guys were wondering real quick, just right before I do this, how to get this thing out, it's just a pin that goes through the power button right here, and right on the end of this little U shape, there's 2 magnets, which is how it returns. But yeah, it's just a pin that goes through the frame, through the power button. Pretty simple to take out. Alright guys, we're back. Swapped it out. Flipped it over. Plug in the battery here. And there we go, button works fine. So there it is, the eye's on, the eye's off. Now we get this trigger pin in here, so the trigger is actually going to get that. So, just looking pretty good. Go ahead and turn it back off. Just connect that. Alright, we're almost done. I'm just going to throw everything back together now. I'm going to put the vertical reg on. So something that I noticed when I was throwing this thing back together, when I got it, the reg was perfectly seated, so this 90-degree macro was sitting right down here, where it usually is when it's stock, if you can get the threading to, you know, stop at the correct position and line up right. However, it's the threading is stopping on the vertical reg in the same spot it was before. However, it's not sitting here, it's slightly offset, as you guys can see right there. I think this might have been causing problems for yourself, Game Freak, and maybe the previous owner if he was messing around with it. With that pin that was shredded in here that was holding the vertical adapter guide to the body. My thought is that the vertical reg adapter right here itself was actually twisted, which would make it so these holes inside aren't lining up, which would cause basically, you know, not even a third of the air that should be going through the gun to get into the gun, which would cause it to not fire. If you were having problems with it, I speculate that was one of the huge problems. So everything is sitting nice and tight right now. So we're just gonna go ahead and leave that, and we're gonna put the rest of this thing back together. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and this is the regular nerve board. So I'm just gonna reset it so it's sitting down at semi. And I showed you guys how to do that in the previous video. If you don't, it's very simple. You're just going to push and hold the power button until it beeps once, and you're going to use these 2 buttons right here. It's your up and down button. So you're up and down, pretty simple. So there's only 5 modes, so you're going to hit down and it'll bring it all the way down to mode 1, which is semi, 5 all the way up to the ramping that's set off at about 5 BPS. So we're just going to go ahead and make it semi. And she's already sitting at semi, so that's good. Okay, zoom back out. Alright, so gun's going back together. We're going to go ahead and throw this grip frame on here. Now, something that you want to be careful with when you're putting grips on your shocker is make sure you get screws that aren't too long, or else you're going to go through here and that is going to screw straight into either the upper board or the solenoid, and you don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and screw these again. Just, you know, kind of feel it as you're going down, hand tight, because you'll feel if it starts running into something. Hand tight, and hand tight, you know, these grips aren't going to go anywhere, so you don't really have to worry about it. The bottom one obviously is not too big of a deal. You can tighten that down as much as you want. So go ahead and put that down there. And since we're doing the whole thing, turn this gun off. We're going to take out the bolt guide and take a look at that, and just make sure that doesn't have to be lubed or anything like that. So, nice and easy. You don't want that to strip. And twist this out. Now, if you have other private labels, such as the Nasty, the Russian Legion, the Hybrid, or you can even buy just the Hybrid bolt guides. Those actually have a big piece come out, so you don't need any tools or anything like that. There's a ton of Dow 33 on here, but shockers do love grease. So let's go ahead and to actually get this bolt out, you need to push it out from the front, and everything will pop out in the back. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. You can either use Like sometimes I use those red stick squeegees. It's nice and soft on the inside. A pencil, the eraser side of a pencil would be good. You don't ever want to use anything metal because then you're going to scratch up the insides. Alright guys, we cleaned everything up a little bit, but I had to run and go grab my swab at the same time. So, I'm just going to take this and push it in through the front. Very easy and gentle. Just go ahead until it starts popping out the back. At that point you can just kind of pull it out. There's a lot of grease on this thing. Go ahead and here's the bolt sleeve. Delrin bolt sleeve, it's pretty nice. And go ahead and pull out this bolt. Now this is the HE bolt kit, so the can is coming out with the bolt, as you noticed. If you have just the stock SFT bolt kit, the bolt will come out and the can will actually stay on the gun, and you'll have to use a lot of times you can get in there with the swab and just push it in through the front of the can and catch this back lip, and you'll able to slide it right out the back. But what we're going to go ahead and do is grab a couple paper towels here, and we're just going to go ahead and clean everything off. Really nice and clean. This is making sure there's no dirt, debris, you know, paint, pretty much anything that would interfere with the normal operation of the gun. Alright, well, as I clean this off here, I'm noticing this bumper O-ring right here, right on the back, is completely shredded into actually two separate pieces. So I'll have to take that off. Look, I got a couple O-ring kits here, and we'll get a new one. Get the rest of this grease off. Really greasy. Alright, now, because I am minus my tools, I do not have an O-ring pick, which is a real pain when I'm trying to work with these. Luckily, this is completely shredded, and I'm not too worried about breaking it anymore, so I'm going to use a knife to actually get this. Extremely gentle, because I do not want to scratch anything here. I'm just going to get up under a piece of the O-ring, if it'll stay still. It's not cooperating. There it is. And very carefully, I'm just going to cut it so that'll come off. Now the second piece is a bit closer, and I like to not do that, so I'm going to try and get in there with a small Allen key and just kind of work it back a little so I can catch it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get it up onto the bolt guides, and just go ahead and take that off. And we'll replace it while we're right here. You can go ahead and here's a rebuild kit for an SFT. Alright, so we got ourselves an O-ring. Specifically, this O-ring is called the Bolt Bumper O-ring, if you guys were curious. So let's put this back on. Sit right back there. Alright. I'm not going to actually take any of these O-rings off because I don't really feel like replacing them. If I do find damage on them, I will replace them, but these ones look pretty good. These are one of the few moving O-rings that's going to be inside this whole bolt guide. So we'll go ahead and we're going to grease those after.
Every time I start to believe something's raped and taken from me.